وَالَّذِي أَخْرَجَ الْمَرْعَ فَجَعَلَهُ غُثَاءً أَحْوَى, and who brought forth vegetation and then made it lush green. There is a literary complexity which arises in these verses. It needs to be understood first so that the real stress of these verses can be appreciated. Generally, people have translated the expression غُثَاءً أَحْوَى as black litter or as black waste material. Although the word ghutha in Arabic means froth and waste material, however, the word ahwa is never used for blackness which results from decay, decomposition, and old age. It, on the contrary, is used for reddish or greenish blackness which is evident on something because of freshness, fertility, and luxuriance. It is often used as an adjective for vegetation in orchards, and without any exception is used for their luxuriant growth and intense lushness. From this root meaning, it came to be used for a strong, burly, and robust young man. The reason for this is that people who are very healthy and who have plenty of blood in their bodies have blackish red lips. Thus, the famous poet of the Jahiliyyah period, Ta'abbat Sharran, while extolling a person says, Musbilun fil hayyi ahwa rafilun, wa iza yaghzu fasim'un azalun. In this manner, he remains a well-dressed, fair and red-complexioned young smart person. However, when he enters a battlefield, he is like an agile wolf cub. The word ghutha, though means the froth of butter and the waste material of flood water, it is also very commonly used for the vegetation which becomes dense and blackish because of fertility of the land. Imam Farahi in his Mufradat al-Qur'an has furnished a number of couplets from classical Arabic poetry of the Jahiliyyah period to substantiate this meaning. For the sake of brevity, I will confine myself to citing just one couplet of Qattami, which he wrote while praising a valley. He says, حَلُّ بِأَخْضَرَ قَدْ مَالَتْ سَرَارَتُهُ مِنْ ذِي غُسَاءٍ عَلَى الْأَعْرَاضِ أَنْضَادٌ. They descended in a lush green valley, on the borders of which luxuriant and thick undergrowth was enmeshed and stacked on each other in layers. In the verse under discussion, since the word ghusa is qualified by the adjective ahwa, hence it is necessarily used in the second of the meanings referred to above. Otherwise, there would be great disagreement between the noun and the adjective which qualifies it. The reason, as I have pointed out above, is that the word ahwa is never used for the blackness which is the result of decay, decomposition, and old age of something. There is no example of such usage in classical Arabic. Moreover, the context and placement of the verse also does not accept this meaning, as shall be presently explained. Hence, the correct meaning of the verse is, وَالَّذِي أَخْرَجَ الْمَرْعَ فَجَعَلَهُ غُثَاءً أَحْوَى, would be that one should extol the Almighty who brings forth vegetation in the form of delicate stem stalks and then makes them luxuriant and blackish green. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ إِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْجَهْرَ وَمَا يَخْفَى. We shall recite to you, then you will not forget, except what God pleases. These verses state a real message which was meant to be put across to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and for which the previous verses served as an introduction. The implication is that the law of gradual development, which is in currency to perfect man's being and to apportion and destine abilities and energies and to nurture them, and which is instrumental in producing vegetation and making it grow, the same law will be employed by the Almighty in dealing with them. The phases of his prophethood and the divine revelation sent down to him will also reach their culmination in a gradual manner. Soon the time will arrive when he will surmount all the difficulties of the path he has been asked to tread and will reach his destination. The context and occasion of the verse, سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى, is exactly the same as the following verses of Surah Taha and Surah Qiyamah respectively. وَلَا تَعْجَلْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يُقْضَى إِلَيْكَ وَحْيُهُ. And be not in haste with the Qur'an before its revelation is completed to you. Surah number 20, verse 114. لَا تُحَرِّكْ بِهِ لِسَانَكَ لِتَعْجَلَ بِهِ. Do not move your tongue swiftly to hastily acquire the Qur'an. Surah number 75, verses 16. While explaining these verses, I have written in detail that the only support to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to combat the hindrances and opposition he was facing in the spirit of his preaching mission was this divine help which was sent down to him in the form of revelations. This would provide necessary resources to him to tread this path and the guidance that was needed in future. Similarly, this would also help him in answering the objections and responding to demands raised by his adversaries. For these multifarious reasons, he would always be waiting for divine revelation to descend to him, and when it would come, he would show haste and eagerness in acquiring it. This impatience is similar to the one shown by an infant in reaching out for its mother's bosom. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would be so enthusiastic at this instance that he would want to acquire all the revelation in one go, and since the Qur'an was also a great asset which was being entrusted to him by the Almighty, he would repeat each and every word of the revelation, lest any of it might slip away from his memory. The Almighty has assured him at his eagerness and hastiness. He has been told to not show haste. The Almighty himself has set a timeline for it, according to which it would be revealed, and there is great wisdom in this scheme. The Almighty has also assured the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that he should not fret over its preservation. The Almighty himself has taken upon himself to preserve it in such a foolproof manner that the Prophet will not forget it. In Surah Qiyamah, this assertion is made in the following words: لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به إن علينا جمعه وقرآنه فإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه ثم إن علينا بيانه. Do not move your tongue hastily on it. Indeed, upon us is its collection and recital. So when we have recited it out, follow this recital. Then upon us is to explain it. Surah number 75, verses 16 to 19. The expression illa ma sha Allah, or except when God pleases, alludes to the fact that only temporary and interim things are an exception to this rule. The Almighty will himself inform the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when their term expires. The reference is to the temporary directives which were later abrogated. The sentence إِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْجَهْرَ وَمَا يَخْفَى, or He knows what is apparent and what is hidden, implies that the Almighty is not unaware of the circumstances the Prophet is passing through. He is fully aware of them and knows what is apparent and what is hidden in this regard. The implication is that the Almighty is aware of all his worries as well as his prayers, and also aware of the open pranks and the hidden conspiracies of his enemies. When everything is in his knowledge and he also possesses power and authority, the Prophet should rest assured that he will be provided whatever help he requires. This subject is mentioned in even more detail in Surah Taha in the following words: لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا وَمَا تَحْتَ الثَّرَى وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. In his control is what is in the heavens and the earth, and all that lies between them, and also what is beneath the earth. Whether you speak loudly or silently, he has knowledge of all that is hidden and what is most hidden. It should be kept in mind that true faith and trust in God emanates from a strong awareness of his all-embracing knowledge and his all-encompassing power. وَنُيَسِّرُكَ لِلْيُسْرَى, and we shall lead you towards ease. These words give glad tidings to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in very clear words. The hardships he is currently facing will one day end, and the Almighty will lead him towards ease. The word yusra is an adjective of a suppressed noun similar in meaning to tariqah. I have already explained the meaning of taysir at some place in this tafsir. It means to prepare something for a higher objective. It is evident from this word that the difficulties the Prophet is currently passing through are meant to train and discipline him, and so that the Almighty can make him entitled to his favors and blessings in the future. This is actually the natural corollary of the law of God stated above in the words وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى وَالَّذِي أَخْرَجَ الْمَرْعَى فَجَعَلَهُ غُثَاءً أَحْوَى, and who set their destinies and then gave guidance, and who brought forth vegetation and then made it lush green. In other words, the hardships he is encountering are right in accordance with the law of God to train and discipline him. The way ahead is clear. he should rest assured that he will be guided, and it is only after difficulties that ease comes. فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفْعَتِ الذِّكْرَى. So remind them if reminding is beneficial. The verse implies that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ should not get perturbed and distressed. It is not his responsibility to force down his message on others. His only responsibility is to remind others when he thinks that they are inclined to listen to him. Otherwise, he should leave them to their fate. سَيَذَّكَّرُ مَنْ يَخْشَى وَيَتَجَنَّبُهَا الْأَشْقَى الَّذِي يَصْلَى النَّارَ الْكُبْرَى ثُمَّ لَا يَمُوتُ فِيهَا وَلَا يَحْيَى. The fearful will benefit from it, and the wretched will evade it. He will enter the great fire, then neither will he die nor live in it. These verses inform the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ of the type of people who will pay heed to his message and those who will evade it. The implication is that those who are evading his calls are not doing so because there is some shortcoming in it or in its preacher. In fact, it is because they themselves have something wrong in them. They regard this life to be all that there is. They have no fear of the hereafter. Such unfortunate people should be left to themselves. They shall be flung in the great fire which is ready for them. They will neither live in it nor die, and will remain in its eternal torment. They will wish for death, but it will not come to relieve them of their miseries. Here it might be appropriate to refresh our memories about the practice of God that I have explained at many places in this tafsir. And that is, people who honor and protect the light with which the Almighty's lit up their nature find the message of a prophet as the call of their hearts. Even if this light has dimmed, sooner or later they wake up after being prodded and prompted by their prophet. However, people in which this light has been totally extinguished are rather like the dead. Only the trumpet blown on the day of judgment will awaken them. In the following verse of Surah Ghashiyah, the succeeding surah and the counterpart of this surah, this subject is referred to in even more detail in the following words. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرْ إِلَّا مَنْ تَوَلَّى وَكَفَرْ فَيُعَذِّبُهُ اللَّهُ الْعَذَابَ الْأَكْبَرَ إِنَّ إِلَيْنَا إِيَّابَهُمْ ثُمَّ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا حِسَابَهُمْ. Just remind them, for your duty is only to remind them. You are not to force them. He who will embrace faith will succeed. As for he who turns away and denies, God will punish him gravely. Indeed, to us will they return. Then it is upon us to call them to account. Surah number 88, verses 21 to 26. These verses mention the words Al-Azab al-Akbar, or the great torment. And in the verse under discussion, the words are An-Nar al-Kubra, or the great fire. Both refer to the same thing in slightly different styles, and God willing, I shall explain them in the tafsir of the next surah.